What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's Dietitian Talk with your girl, Kara Corey. We're going to talk about one of the number one things that I see with a lot of clients that I work with and a lot of you guys that reach out to me and have questions about your diet and reaching your goals. So today we're going to talk about all things protein, and as you saw by the thumbnail, we're going to talk about why you guys struggle so much with reaching your protein goals, why many of you don't reach your protein goals, and I'm going to also give you guys some tips on how to kind of better shift or structure your meals to make it much easier for you to hit those protein goals. Before we jump on into it, make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel, hit that post notification bell, that way you guys can hang out with me once or twice a week over here on the YouTubes so that I can help assist you guys in living a healthier lifestyle. Now, before we jump right into that, I think it's important that we discuss what protein is and why exactly we need it. We hear about it a lot, especially when we're talking to folks who want to lose weight, maybe change some of their hormonal levels. So why is it that protein is so heavily discussed? First, when understanding protein, you need to know that your body is made up of protein. Every single structure in your body contains protein. So when you think about it like that, I love thinking about internally what's going on when you start to reflect on your eating choices and think about, am I really matching my eating choices with what my body internally needs? So when you think about the fact that every structure and cell in your body is comprised of proteins, it makes sense that we want to ensure that we've got enough protein coming into our diet to replenish those structures. The basic structure of protein, if you haven't heard, is called amino acids. When you consume protein in your diet, your body is going to digest it and essentially break that protein down into amino acids. Protein or amino acids are essential in our diet or just in general because it helps to repair our cells and those structures, as I previously just mentioned. It also helps for any kind of growth and repair of our muscles. There are also different types of amino acids. So it can basically be broken down into three categories. We have essential amino acids, which the essential amino acids are not something that we can make on our own. We have to have those coming in via the diet. Then we have our non-essential amino acids. Those are ones that we don't have to worry about coming in through food because our body is able to make those structurally on their own. And then the third and not so trendy, if you will, are the conditional amino acids. And those are really the ones that we need in more critical times, such as an illness or any type of stress response in our bodies. And I think it's important to mention as well, with our essential amino acids, the ones that we have coming in via food can again be broken down into two other subcategories. We have incomplete and then we have complete amino acids. So when you think about those three categories, the essential coming in through our food, through our diet, we also then need to discuss the fact that there are incomplete versus complete proteins. So with talking about amino acids, for a food to be considered a complete protein, that is going to have all 9 amino acids. All 9 essential amino acids that our body needs are going to be considered a complete protein. Complete protein sources are most oftenly thought of from the animal category, so things like meats, chicken, eggs, our dairy products, and seafood are without a doubt complete proteins. But not to fear for any vegans or plant-based folks out there as well. You are certainly able to still get in essential amino acids through your diet. While you may need to be a bit more strategic about it, you certainly can go ahead and still get in enough essential amino acids through your diet. Some complete proteins that are plant-based would be things like quinoa. That's kind of known as a very high quality protein for those of us that are plant-based. Things like buckwheat. I have a great buckwheat pancake recipe on the YouTube as well. And things like soy are all complete proteins. For those of you that are more plant-based and maybe struggle with consuming more incomplete sources, you can be a bit more strategic with protein combining to ensure that you get that complete protein source. And I want you to know that it doesn't even have to be within that same meal. It can be just looking throughout that entire day. Are you matching up those amino acids and hopefully getting in all the essential amino acids that you need in your diet? How much protein do we truly need? This question comes up all the time, and it's one of those ones that it's going to depend. I know you guys hate that answer from me, but it does depend on the person. It depends on a number of factors in terms of you, your diet, your lifestyle, your medical history, all that kind of stuff. So giving you guys guidelines here today, these are just generic guidelines for the basic healthy individual, if you will. So there's different trains of thoughts on the approach here, but I focus more on the research that does show that increasing the protein within your diet can help in a number of ways, in particular with weight management. So a lot of the clients that I work with are lifestyle weight management clients, so I do focus on a bit of a higher protein intake with them. It's not to say that many of us go way overboard. I get clients that are consuming triple the amount of protein they need, and others that are coming close but are, could really use beefing that macronutrient up a bit to help meet their goals. So overall, based on your total calories that you're consuming, most of us will recommend anywhere, and this is quite a range, but anywhere between 10 to 30% of your total calories coming from protein. For me personally, I usually prescribe 30% of your total calories coming from protein. To figure that out, if you were on, let's just say, a 2,000 calorie diet, that's going to mean that about 600 of those calories should be coming from protein. It doesn't seem like a lot when you think about it in that context, but I will tell you that so many struggle to actually reach that number. You may adjust that number based on a couple of factors. Some people do it based on kilograms of body weight. You often hear people say 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That actually is a little bit on the higher side, even comparatively to the research where they do look at studying folks on higher protein diets. They typically do 1.2 to 1.6 per kilogram of body weight. That's typically how we figure it out. So, there is some variance there based on what dietitian you look at, what fitness coach you look at, what research you look at. But overall, the majority of the meta-analysis that have been done in regards to protein assisting with weight loss consider that 1.2 to 1.6 kilograms per body weight a high protein diet. So why does it matter if we're eating enough protein, right? It's about calories in, calories out, isn't it? Isn't that all that matters? Well, not necessarily. There's so much more to that equation. I keep trying to instill that in you guys. That, sometimes it does just come down to a calorie expenditure, but there's a lot of other factors there in regards to the quality of the foods that you're choosing, the quantity of foods, the types of macronutrients, and in what quantities that will impact how you feel. So maybe you won't see a difference on the scale, maybe you will, but overall, it's really going to impact the quality of your life, the quality of your body's organism, and how it functions on a day-to-day basis, and that is so key. That's something we should never lose sight of, whether we have weight loss goals, or maybe we do just have health goals and we're just trying to change some of our laboratory markers or try to feel better. We should always think about what's going to make me feel the best, because the skinniest I've been is probably the least healthy I ever felt. Waking up with no energy, not feeling good, all those kinds of things. So don't be focused on being skinny, being thin, losing the weight, I'll be happy. No, you could be miserable. So let's set you up to do this the right way, you guys. So why protein intake is so important when it comes to living a healthier lifestyle or reaching your weight loss goals. Number one, protein just makes us feel fuller so much longer. I want you guys to experiment with this. If you're like, what is she talking about right now? Go ahead, eat yourself a big bowl of, I think back to when I was vegetarian and I was terrible at eating enough protein. Even as a vegetarian, there's no excuses, there's ways to do it, but I was a bad vegetarian and I would just eat like half a box of Nutri-Grain bars or like half a box of cereal going back to my college days. And I would end up finishing the entire box. not because I had binge eating disorder, because I wasn't satiated. I was not feeling full from only having carbohydrates and a little bit of fat. There's something to be said about ensuring that you have enough protein with each of your meals, with each of your snacks when possible. It may not always be that perfect, so I also don't want you to sweat it. But when you really go about planning your meals and snacks accordingly with adequate protein, you will notice how much fuller you feel. If you just eat an entire bag of 90-second rice versus eating half a bag of 90-second rice paired with a 4-ounce chicken breast, I guarantee the meal with the chicken breast is going to not only help you feel full quicker, but also maintain that fullness for a longer period of time. So in particular, for those of you that are looking to lose weight, this is why we do recommend focusing on that protein goal and making sure you're getting in enough protein and truly kind of making adjustments with some of your other carbohydrate or fat choices throughout the day, or playing around with other areas of calorie expenditure. But the protein is going to be key for you to feel full. What does that mean? It means you're going to better be able to kind of get rid of cravings and not focus on those. You're going to be less apt to mindlessly snack or eat when you're not actually hungry. You're just going to feel more satisfied, therefore feel less restricted, which oftentimes is the key for most of us with being successful. With feeling full longer and consuming protein, the way we absorb and break down protein, it helps us to kind of better regulate blood sugar, which is why with my diabetic folks, again, we pay more attention to the protein carbohydrate combinations in the diet. Protein better helps regulate those blood sugar levels. It helps blood sugar to not spike as quickly or drop as rapidly. It just kind of helps even things out, not only in the moment of breaking it down, but also again for the long term. So whether you're diabetic or not, that doesn't matter. We all can feel the impacts of blood sugar changes. Some of us are more sensitive than others, right? Some of us can very easily feel the effects of hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia, actually. So making sure that you have that protein to better regulate your blood sugar will help you eliminate those crashes in your blood sugar. By eliminating those big spikes or big drops, that's typically that point in time where we can have cravings kick in. So getting the protein in there is going to help better regulate your blood sugar as well as keeping you full longer. I mentioned to you guys recently that I took a food addiction training, and there was tons and tons of information in there I could break out into separate segments, but one of the main things that really, I would say, was a takeaway for me, if you will, as a refresher, is how much of our feeding systems within our body internally are regulated by our brain, in particular the hypothalamus of our brain. And that hypothalamus is what really receives and sends a lot of signals to our body. Okay, we're hungry, we need to eat now, we're full. There's a lot of hormone regulation going on that speaks to that center of our brains. And one of the main things we discuss too when it comes to kind of food addiction, which is a separate topic, but with folks who just feel out of control with food, how do we better regulate and how do we have better control? And what we discussed was the prefrontal cortex and kind of getting better control over the food choices we're eating. And one of the methods that they suggested was trying to ensure that you have enough protein coming in through your diet. You know, that's going to help reduce the sugar cravings a bit for those reasons that I just mentioned. So if you're also someone who's maybe not trying to lose weight, but you're feeling kind of out of control with your food, looking at how much protein you have coming in through the diet could be quite helpful as well, and starting to focus more on the protein of your diet, the protein quality and quantity. So those are both important. I don't want to just focus on quantity. The quality is important as well, right? So thinking about getting in enough of the essential amino acids coming in through complete protein sources, or ensuring someone who's getting incomplete sources is kind of pairing things up throughout the day to make sure you are getting enough of the essentials. The other cool reason to eat protein, and thinking in regards to weight loss and weight management, is the fact that the thermic effect of food is higher with protein than it is with any other macronutrient. So if you're not familiar with the thermic effect of food, that's essentially the process in which that you're breaking down your food. You're absorbing it, digesting it, goes into the bloodstream and then ships it off to where it needs to go in your body's cells. So that process in itself burns calories. Rather cool, right? I always really appreciated the thermic effect of food. With protein, it is the highest amount. So compared to when you sit down and eat fats, sit down and eat carbs, or carbs and fats together, you don't burn as many calories as you do with protein. And protein is 4 calories per gram, which is similarly to carbohydrates being the same. However, it just takes more for your body to do the work to break it down and digest it. So remind yourself of that too. You know, if you're omitting protein throughout your entire day, you're going to be missing out on those additional calories that could be burned from that process. Also, we want to think about the fact that protein is within our muscles. So if we are someone that is active, which most of you guys come to this channel because you know my love for fitness as well. So if we're out there being active, and I'm not saying you have to be an elite athlete, a marathon runner, or a bodybuilder. If you're someone who's just getting in movement, lifting in weights, doing some cardio, you are breaking down muscle, and it's important that you're getting what you need through the diet to help repair your muscles. I'm always encouraging you guys to think about the longevity of your health. This isn't about thinking about just your aesthetics right now. We want to have longevity here, right? I know for me personally, I want to be active up until the day I die if I can be. So it's critical for me to maintain that incoming flow of protein to replenish my muscles, to keep them strong, and to repair them. Because essentially when we're lifting weights, you're causing damage to the muscles, which is a good thing, right? Your muscles can grow. We want to repair those muscles with the adequate protein that they need. One of the other things that I wanted to mention too was a nice meta-analysis that was done in 2015. I'll link it below. But essentially that meta-analysis really found that the folks who were on a higher protein diet, as I previously mentioned, that was 1.2 to 1.6 kilograms per pound of body weight. So that group of individuals lost more weight, and it was due to modulations in their energy metabolism, in their hormone levels, and just their appetite levels. They found that their satiety hormones, if you will, were increased, which just means they were able to feel full more quickly. So there's a few different factors that increase. Those are things like our cholecystokinin, GLP-1, and peptide YY. Those were all seen to be increased with the group that had higher protein intake. And with that group as well, they saw a decrease in their hunger hormone, ghrelin. Our hunger hormone, ghrelin, is what we produce that signals to our brain saying, yo, feed me. This bee is hungry. Okay, so they found decreased levels in that. So really that is the key. Like, their hormones play into this too, you guys, when it comes to weight loss. It's not always calories in, calories out. I think we found this long ago with the Biggest Loser folks who lost tons of weight. They did more long-term studies on them with how their hormones were impacted. I think I did a video on that at many years ago, but it was very interesting stuff. So we have to think about these satiating hormones versus our appetite stimulating hormones, and what our habits are doing to influence those in either a negative or a positive way. So I've given you guys a lot of info here, right? And now to get to the meat of it, why you guys aren't eating enough protein. Hopefully some of this information made you think through it a bit more, where the key is always just to be more mindful, right? For me, I'm not a perfection focused person. I'm just not a perfectionist. I'm just someone who's always finding ways to be more mindful about what we can do and to do it better. And that's what I encourage you guys to do. It's very easy, considering all this great information I've given you, to still not eat enough protein, because at the end of the day, you walk away from this video and think about those things that impact your protein habits. The most common reasons I see that you guys are not eating enough protein, number one, is just a lack of planning. Lack of planning and not really thinking about it. So if you're someone that is trying to get that higher protein allocation in there, you have to do a little planning to get there. Reason being, protein is just not as convenient as our other forms of macronutrients. It's not as convenient as carbs that sit right out on the counter, or fats and things like that. And our taste buds and what we're kind of raised to have a preference towards is a bit more of the sweet and salty type things, which are usually comprised more in our carbs and fats and not necessarily our proteins. It's just much easier for us to reach for carbs throughout the day. So when it comes to your protein, you have to actively plan and think about, how am I going to get enough protein throughout the day? And this does not mean that you have to track your macros, you guys. You don't have to. But it means becoming more familiar with portion sizes with protein, how much protein are in different food items, and kind of thinking about how much you eat throughout the day and splitting it up. That's the process that I take that works rather well, is kind of splitting it up through the day. I eat 4 times a day, and I know I'm aiming for 100 grams of protein. So sitting down and making sure I have about 25 grams of protein per meal works very well for me. And that actually coincides with that meta-analysis that I mentioned before. They found that despite the high protein levels, it also seemed to work the best when they split it up with their meal timing and ensured that they had a good 25 to 30 grams of protein coming in per meal. That is what helped assist with those modulations to their energy metabolism and their appetite. So again, really kind of thinking a bit more strategically about this. It takes time, it takes planning. Also, the availability of protein, it's just, like I said, it's not as convenient. It's not as readily available. You're just not going to find as much protein laying around as you would carbs and fats. So you have to actively plan to have things prepared, to have things ready, or to have some of the more portable type proteins ready to go as well. And we'll get into some of those good sources to have on hand in a minute. Another reason why I feel like many of my clients or folks just don't eat enough protein is just a lack of awareness, quite honestly. Especially if you're someone that doesn't track and you do more intuitive eating, it's just very easy to not eat enough protein. I know for me personally, and I'm only one person, but I struggle with this when I'm doing intuitive eating. I just don't have a tendency to reach for protein as much as I know I should. Whereas when I'm tracking macros, I'm more actively being mindful about reaching those numbers throughout the day. So for those of you that aren't tracking, you may just not even be aware that you're only eating 40 grams of protein a day and you're 150 pounds and you're very active. So that's just not going to be enough for you, nor is it going to help assist if you're someone who is trying to lose weight. So a good place to start there may just be kind of tracking or logging for the week and coming up with an estimation of how much protein you're truly consuming, in effort to know, am I off target or am I pretty on target? I think we need to start there and figure out where you fall within that spectrum. The other reason why folks just don't eat enough protein is, honestly, I find a lot of you guys just don't eat enough altogether. So if you're someone who's just chronically undercaloried, you're a chronic dieter, if you will, and you're just chronically trying to eat as little as possible because you're scared to increase your calories, because you're scared that means you're going to gain weight, and that's not necessarily always the truth. But those of you often don't get enough protein in. You just can't if you're not eating enough, right? That was always my biggest struggle with bodybuilding. I always got in enough protein, but more thinking about micronutrient, which is important too. There was just no way I could get in all my micronutrients because variety starts to get lower and lower the more extreme the dieting measures go. So for those of you who are yo-yo dieters, chronic dieters, odds are if you're under eating, you're probably not getting enough protein in your diet either. Just a mention I want to make too in regards to weight loss and high protein diets, it's not just, you can't just eat more protein and lose weight. I want to emphasize that, and I failed to earlier. You can't just eat more protein and lose a bunch of weight. There's a lot more that plays into it too, right? It's making sure that your energy expenditure is still within that proper balance of you've got less coming in than what's going out, that you're exercising, that you're doing all the other things to support healthy bodily functions. Things like sleep, stress, all those other kind of factors that come in there do come into play too. So don't get me wrong, it's not just I'm going to start eating 200 calories more protein and I'll lose weight. Doesn't necessarily work like that either. Now I want to give you guys some suggestions on how to better increase protein in your diet if you've gotten this far and you're like, that might be me. I may be a little off point here. So as I mentioned before, for me personally, I structure my meals around protein. So I'm someone that like on the weekend, I eat 3 meals. I always eat 3 square meals on the weekend because I'm busy doing other things. Whereas during the week, I tend to eat more 4 to 5. So I always try to focus my meal on protein first. And I don't think like, oh, I'm gonna have toast this morning. I usually think about what proteins do I have on hand? What do I wanna make? Am I gonna cook something? And I kind of center my meals around my protein and then I build from there. So if I'm in the mood for seafood or if I want something more plant-based like beans, for instance, I start with my protein and then I build what goes good with it. So that's just an easy tip for me. Don't neglect your snacks. Snacks are another way to make sure you're getting in enough protein. And remember the things I mentioned, the fact that it's gonna make you feel more full, more satiated, reduce craving. So we want that with your snacks as well. With snacks, I tend to go more towards the dairy end. If you eat dairy, things like Greek yogurt, things like nuts, things like hummus, or if you're a snacker who likes raw veggies and dip, I make my own dip made with like the Fage 0% Greek yogurt, add a little ranch dip in there, and it makes like a nice high protein dressing. So, and if you're a yogurt person, why aren't you eating Greek yogurt? There's more health properties to it in terms of the probiotics, and it's going to be much higher in protein for you as well. And get your kids on it too. There's no reason why your kids can't be eating Greek yogurt too. Choose things like leaner cuts of meat. I oftentimes hear from people, well, I try to get my protein, but then I eat way too much fat. So take a look at the quality of the protein you're choosing to. It's not just about quantity, right? You have to think about the quality too. So think about leaner cuts of meat that maybe you can eat a bigger portion size with. We do a lot of lean ground turkey in this house just because it's what both Jason and I love, but you can eat a lot of it, right, for a good amount of protein and not a lot of other stuff in there. Also think about something like, and it doesn't have to be everything that you eat for protein sources is lean, but for those of us that are struggling, getting in more lean meats throughout the day and then, have a fatty fish at night. That's so good for you too. So trying to make sure that you get a variety of your protein sources in there as well is just gonna ensure that you get more nutrients overall, get all your bases covered. The other tip I suggest you guys do is really take a check on what your breakfast meal is looking like. Some of us do different things for breakfast, but I find that that's where most people are lacking. That breakfast that's the start of your day. And for many people, they don't start their day with any kind of protein. I'm all for a big bowl of cereal, I got you, but it is gonna make or break you in terms of how full you're feeling the rest of the day, how fueled you're feeling, and your ability to hit your protein grams. So really take a look at your breakfast and think about what you could do there. And it doesn't mean you have to eat eggs for breakfast. Eggs are a great, normal, common way to get in protein at breakfast, but there's often times that I eat what would be considered a lunch or a dinner meal for breakfast because I like to start my day with just satisfying fuel. So kind of throw those, your own created rules about what breakfast should look like out the door and really think about what protein sources you like and what might be a good breakfast for you. I love doing wraps for breakfast. Anything in like a tortilla, whether it be eggs or turkey or even chicken. Like I love a breakfast wrap because it's just good, it's on the go, and it's so satisfying. If you're someone that does eat protein throughout the day and you're like, oh, I'm still just not getting there, another great thing to add in, if you like cottage cheese, I feel like cottage cheese is just such an easy addition to many meals. It doesn't have to be eaten alone as a snack. I add a scoop of cottage cheese in a green vegetable salad, or I add it in a bowl of chicken and rice. It really does kind of like mix in and taste really good with a lot of different meals. So with cottage cheese, it's high protein for a small amount. So even adding in just like one scoop throughout the day may make the difference of you hitting your protein goals or not. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is protein powders. Some people are anti-protein powders. This girl is not. You guys know I swear by my MTS Nutrition Whey protein. I also use the plant-based protein in my diet, just because I feel like I personally digest it better. So do you have to consume protein powders or protein bars in effort to meet your protein goals? Absolutely not. But a lot of people do struggle to eat enough, and adding in a protein powder or a protein bar, something like the Outright bar is one of my go-tos, just to get in that extra 15 or 20 grams of protein that I'm just struggling to meet. I know for me personally, that tends to be where I fall short, is anywhere from like 15 to 30 grams of protein. So instead of trying to force feed another meal, I like to just make up a smoothie, you know, with a whey protein or my Planta protein. It just adds in that extra 20 to 30 grams of protein that I need. I feel like it's just digests well, I don't feel overly full from it, and it gives my body what I need. So that might be something to look at. Find a brand that you trust. That's why I go with MTS Nutrition or like Ambrosia Collective with my proteins, and ensure that you guys are finding flavors that you like too. That's important. There's no need to be fooled by the MLMs out there telling you you have to drink their brand of protein that you hate and you have to choke it down. There's no need for that. Make sure that you find a quality protein, something that you enjoy, you like the flavor of it. You don't even have to drink it as a shake. I have years of videos on here for you guys to reference for ways to use protein powder with your cooking or your baking or adding it in other meals, in effort to make it so simple for you to hit your protein goals. If you guys made it this far in the video, I want you to go down below and comment your favorite protein source or your favorite way to increase protein in your diet. Share it below in the community so that we can get some other fun ideas from each other. One other thing Jason's been doing has been like doing hard-boiled eggs and actually even pickling them, which is, you know, it's a whole other process, but it's just been a fun change. It's been something different. And sometimes that's all it takes, you guys, is finding little tiny ways to make changes with the foods you're eating in order to enjoy it more, make it easier, make it foolproof for you. So I hope that you guys found this video helpful. I know it was a lot of information. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you did enjoy it, and please go ahead and, if you don't mind, screenshot part of this video, share it on your Instagram stories, or share it with folks that you think will also find this information helpful. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.